Hey everybody, how you doing? This is another episode of Ask a Property Manager. This is actually episode number 39. And if you have watched this before, you may be wondering why we have an additional face on the screen right now. So I want to welcome Brad Larsen to the show. How you doing, Brad?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
And if you guys listen to our podcast, you're familiar with Brad. He was on a previous episode where we were discussing some in the news topics. But I wanted to have Brad on this live Facebook broadcast because Andrew actually originally brought Brad up to me and said that he listens to his podcast called the Property Management Property Management Mastermind Podcast. And I've listened to a few episodes, very informative stuff. And Brad, you've kind of like figured out how to scale a property management business. At this point, how many doors are you at currently?
We're at 850 plus, and then we should be at about 1,100 by the end of the year. So We're scaling up nicely that way.
And your company is called RentWerx, WERX, right?
RentWerx, and we're here in San Antonio and starting to branch into Austin now.
Oh, very nice. I didn't know that. So, Andrew, as a quick refresher for somebody who maybe hasn't seen this show before, you want to let people know where you're from and kind of what you got going on in your area?
Sure. I am an associate broker with Realty Edge in Buffalo. I have a property, actually run the property management division here, and we have about 120 doors under management here currently. And I'm super excited to be on a podcast with Brad of all people. Eric, you're kind of getting, redundant.
I'm old news.
Old hat.
Oh, absolutely.
Just to plug the podcast again, I've been listening to Property Management Mastermind. That's one of my weekly listens for probably the last 5 or 6 months now. So it's a super good podcast if you're in property management and you're kind of at that stage where you're looking to start scaling or looking to learn best practices or whatever the case may be. That is one of the best podcasts out there in the property management space.
The thing we're trying to do with that podcast is I'm trying to make it where it's the questions that you would want to ask somebody or the interviews you'd want to hear as a property management company owner or even somebody involved in the industry. And it's not focused. I'm not a vendor as far as I'm not trying to really sell you anything as far as I'm not coaching. I'm not doing any of that stuff. So it's really an honest podcast where, yeah, we get some infomercial type stuff where we get vendors on there and we talk about it, but it saves you potentially all that time trying to connect with the vendor. A great example is we talked to the key renter guy, Aaron Marshall, last week. And if you're ever interested in franchising or getting into a franchise, the barrier to talk to those guys is intimidation. You don't want to get wrangled into a 2-hour phone call and have to sign a bunch of disclosures just to find out a couple questions about, hey, is franchising really something I'm even interested in at all?
Right.
And listening to that podcast, you picked up everything you need to know just from that one conversation he and I had.
Yeah, that was a really good podcast. The other one that sticks out in my memory recently is the gentleman who does the insurance policies. That was a very enlightening podcast, and that was maybe 2-3 weeks ago.
Yeah,
so that's definitely that was a great podcast.
36, and we did basically it was a question and answer session. I mean, I'm the dumb property management company owner, and I'm just trying to answer the questions like, what insurance do I need? And we went through all the scenarios. It was really informative, and it posed some answers to the big questions. And not to get into it here, but I think that was really informative. And so it kind of gives you a lead in to at least contact your local insurance guy or gal and find out more about kind of the stuff you need as a business. Because you have 3 facets. You have tenant insurance, owner's insurance for landlord insurance. Then you have your business insurance. You got to worry about all 3 of those things connecting into each other.
Yeah, absolutely. As we get started here, just a quick, wanted to say hello to Debbie, who says, good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for the comment. This is a nice excuse to remind people, if you do have questions, this is a live broadcast, so you can comment with your questions below as we're kind of talking through this. And I know Andrew's got a heap of questions he's going to ask Brad as well. So, Andrew, why don't we get started with that and start with your first question. What do you got?
Actually, before we jump to that, I will mention, make sure if you're commenting, because I know I've got it shared on my page and then on my business page as well. I know you've got it shared in the Rent Prep group. The comment has to be on the rentprep.com page, or we won't see the comments. We won't be able to answer that. So if you're commenting, just make sure you're in the right spot.
Yep.
Brad, thanks for taking the time to talk with me this morning. I really appreciate it. Like I said, I'm super excited because I know I've been watching your management company and listening to the podcast for a while now. I'm kind of at that point where I'm getting ready to scale. I feel like we have quite a bit of the systems type stuff down. There's obviously gaps that need to be filled in certain spots and things like that, but we really want to take this thing from, say, 120 to 300 doors sometime in the next year, and then hopefully 500 the year after that, and so on and so forth. And I guess my first question would be, what are the most important pieces to have in place before you begin to scale a property management operation?
A couple of key points you just mentioned is you said the word hope and you said want. So what I would recommend is you sit down and set up concrete goals first thing to say by 1 January 2019, we are going to add 40 homes into the inventory and scale up from there as far as go up funnel to figure out how many leads it's going to take you to get to 40 new signups or 50 new signups. Same thing with you're going towards the next year into 19, establish a quarterly annual goal for what you want to add in to the property management company, factoring in a 15% loss rate. That's a kind of an industry standard is 15%. Maybe you have 5%, maybe you have 25%. You know, for example, the last 2 years, we've had 20% fallout. Mm-hmm. And those are from 15 to 16% of those are from sales. I mean, the reluctant landlords, when they vacate out of here and they PCS out of the military city, USA, they're going to eventually just sell their property. And when the market gets good, at first opportunity, when the tenant's coming up to vacate, they just go ahead and sell it. And so we've been losing 20% the last couple of years, but we've still been growing tremendously. Mm-hmm. You know, last year we added 364 homes to the rolls, almost one a day. And this year we're planning on adding close to 400 to 450 homes. And so it's going to be another good year. So back to that, where I'm going with those numbers is I'm reflecting the point that we set up those goals long in advance. So the talking about you just, well, I hope we get to this point, you know, eliminate that out of your mindset and say, no, we're going to get to this point by this year in 2019. Here's my goal. This is what we're going to do. Now, to do that, let's go talk through that. To scale up, it's really going to come down to leads, generating leads. Leads equal phone appointments equal in-person appointments. Those in-person appointments equal signups equal lease agreements equal revenue. It's like all that way through.
Right.
So to generate more leads, that's going to be some of the challenging things that we want to talk about here.
For sure. Actually, that was one of my next questions is kind of what marketing do you find most? Actually, let me back up. Do you target predominantly in area or out of area landlords?
There really is no, I mean, that's a tough one because you can focus your Facebook stuff mm-hmm. on in-market landlords. The other national sites like All Property Management, I had to think of that for a second. That's going to be more of a national site. Same with Google. Anything you're doing with Google or Yelp or anything like that, those are national type sites. So they're really not industry, or they're not market focused just for that hot market. That's going to be more your Facebook stuff. And I think you want to go both directions.
I have a quick question on that. I feel like when I looked up your company, RentWerx, you have really great reviews on Google. Is that something that you make part of your process to, like, if you have good client relationships, to encourage people for reviews?
Absolutely. And there's really, there's a couple secrets of getting good reviews. One, we incentivize our team members to get good reviews. So if Schultz, you go on and leave us a review and it's a 5-star and you mentioned Shay, our front desk receptionist. Well, I compensate Shay for that because she convinced you, let's say, to leave her a 5-star review on Google, and we compensate her for that. And in the beginning, most company owners, I mean, I'll be real frank with you guys, you got to go to your friends, your family, your associates, your past realtors, your college buddies. I mean, you got to nail them down. Say, hey man, text message, please leave me a 5-star review. My company really needs it. And that's how you really get the base going. After that, it's easy to kind of just add 1s and 2s, because if you look back and you're at a 2-star review because you had 10 reviews only and you're not paying attention, well, you have to get a bunch of 5 stars to offset those negative ones. Mm-hmm. And if you do get negative reviews, there's a couple different ways you can go about it. You can try to work with that person who left the negative review to potentially remove it. Do not try to bribe them. Do not try to bribe them online. Try to get them on the phone and work through those issues. And maybe they just had an issue with a security deposit. Maybe you can talk them through that. And if they're absolutely just going to be, internet terrorist haters, then you potentially have to use that to your advantage, because the internet terrorist haters are becoming very repetitive. There are always going to be security deposit issues. There's always going to be maintenance issues, and there's going to be false allegations from all of that. Right. So you as the company owner in response can say, we're sorry that you had a maintenance issue. Here's how we're different. And you turn it, like, go political on them. Right. You ask a politician, is the sky blue? The sky is blue, but I want to talk about the issues of today. I want to talk about education, how they switch it around. Well, that's what you have to do on some of these reviews. And it's not the perfect technique, but to get the good 5-star reviews that you want, you really got to make the effort and do it yourself. There's some services out there, okay, those are okay, but you really got to buckle down and focus on it yourself, you personally, especially at a small company.
I personally think it's really important because if in your market in San Antonio, if somebody goes to Google and searches property management company, there's a really good chance that your company RentWerx is going to show up in the search results. And for people that aren't familiar, basically what that is typically what you'll have is like the map listings at the top, and it'll list out your Google local like business page listings. And when you search that in San Antonio, it's not going to work with somebody searching it in Charlotte, right? You're not going to see Brad's company. But that 5-star review that comes up, it's probably like 4.8, 4.9, whatever it is. It catches people's eyes, and that's going to be able to get that click. A lot of times the listings beneath that, I think, are a little bit tougher to get because that's where you get those national websites that'll kind of come in, that'll gobble up a lot of the real estate on the search results. But I think that is an important aspect. So
you have the pay-per-click ads at the top, and then you have the pins. And now the pins are starting to rank by how many reviews you have and the level of reviews you have. That's how they're ranking the pins. So number 1 should be the highest ranked, reviewed company within a certain algorithm that Google has. Below those are the organic ones. That's the folks that have got a lot of content that Google really likes, and they're the organically ranked. That's your sweet spot, because Google will show you that the paid ads on the top are almost overlooked. I mean, it's like 25% people look there. They always focus towards the pins and the organics because they know the organics is not a paid advertisement.
Yeah.
Even in the listings, you'll see ad, like the big word ad in that listing on top of Google. So, 1 out of 4 people are going to shy away from that. Just going to go straight for the organics and get the highest ranking company that they see there.
Yep. So, Andrew, what was the next question that you had on your list here for Brad?
Actually, I had one more question on the reviews. It sounds like you want to push people towards Google for your reviews. Is that accurate, or is there another site we should be pushing people toward?
You have Google, you have Yelp, you have Angie's List, you have Better Business Bureau, you have a couple others out there. I'm trying to draw them at the top of my head, but the biggest ones are Google and Yelp. And Yelp is important because it goes into Bing, and Bing is the default search engine for most new computers.
I did not know that. That's interesting.
If you go buy a computer at Best Buy, it's got the default Bing set up on it. And if you do the Siri as well, that's also going to be defaulting towards Yelp. And Yelp is, Yelp is the scourge of our business, let's be honest, because it's so fake in a lot of different ways. I mean, I could rant on it forever and ever. We are luckily at a 4.5 star, but we have more 5-star reviews filtered than we have 5-star reviews posted. We have like 75 reviews or so filtered.
If you pay them money, they won't filter them anymore. That's their business model.
Think so.
Yeah, exactly.
But it doesn't work like that. You would think so. I would love to say that in all honesty, I would love to, because you could allege that they're extorting you, right? And then they could be taken down. But they have some really good ways to hide that stuff in their algorithms.
Yep.
And I just don't know how to figure it out. The only thing I can tell you is keep your friends close and your enemies closer. So if you are at all on the fence about engaging with Yelp, I would engage. I would highly recommend engaging. Pay their extortion fees, get the highest level membership you can afford, and try to get the most reviews at a 5-star level that you can afford, because those leads that we've gotten from Yelp are closing at a higher than 50% rate.
So, Brad, I have a question for you. Do you have some sort of like math that you'll like run everything through? So like if you're looking at the Yelp system and it's going to cost you hundreds of dollars, do you kind of like rationalize that because you think, well, I know that my average lead provides this in return to me? I mean, do you have all those numbers figured out? So when you're trying to figure out the financials of like making a marketing decision, it's kind of easier for you, or how does that work?
Sure. We gauge it off of a client acquisition cost. And it's a term we use, CAC, client acquisition cost. And eventually what you end up doing is you factor in your business development team members, like your staff, if you have any. Then you're going to factor in all the leads that you're spending and factor in how many signups you're going to have. It's a math equation. And so we're roughly around $375 per acquisition. And so industry-wide, you're probably, if you're south of 500, you're doing pretty good. South of 600, you're doing pretty good. You get up above that, you might as well just buy a company. You know, you can maybe buy a company around there for $800, $1,000, $2,000 a door. If you can keep your client acquisition costs at a quarter to 1/5 of that actual acquisition cost for a large company, it's a reverse of the 20% profit margin.
Okay.
So that's where that math comes from. And going back to that on the client acquisition cost, that's really something you want to track into you developing your next key crucial hire, which is going to be business development. So either you are going to be the business development person, you yourself, and you start to slice off any of the operations to somebody you bring on, or vice versa, you handle the operations. And I think you're better off by slicing off a good business development person and getting them going. Your job as a business owner is to make it rain, generate those leads. You need a good business development person to go out and seek out, do nothing but follow-ups, get into Lead Simple. Lead Simple is an excellent CRM program, and do nothing but chase those owners to get those deals, because you think you can do, I can do everything myself. And, one of my biggest mistakes when I was where you were at 125 homes doing everything myself, I'm like, I'll just wait. And then we waited till we were double in size till we actually hired a business development person. Mm-hmm. And I made that mistake. I really should have hired somebody at your size, 100 plus, 125 units. I really should have bit the bullet and hired somebody. And some folks are thinking, well, how do I afford that? That's an internal business decision. Is you're going to have to figure out a way to make it work. You could do a high commission structure. You could just pay somebody. Here's a good example. You could pay somebody for every door they sign up. If you can generate the leads and then you can get a realtor trained up, you can send out that realtor to do all those appointments for you and all those follow-ups for you, and pay them $300 or $400 or $500 a sign up. So there's no salary. You're only paying for what you get delivered. Okay, so that's a pretty good technique in the start. You just got to find that key realtor that wants to potentially do that for you. They're winning because guess what? If that home does not want to go into a rental pool, then maybe they want to sell. Well, guess who's going to sell it? That realtor. Okay, or you guys work out a split referral fee. Mm-hmm. If you can make it rain, realtors are going to love the opportunity to go out and meet people and either get them to sign up for property management and or get them to sell their home. If they sell their home, though, make sure you have a very hefty referral fee back, because they don't want them poaching your potential property management leads to sell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Actually, that answers one of my questions, because I was going to say, what's the one thing you wish you would have known at 120 doors that you know now?
There's a lot of things I wish I'd have known. I mean, it's an ever-changing thing. It's not like I'm handed like an apartment complex. Hey, you have 346 unit in this apartment complex. Handle it.
Right.
Okay, I could do that because it's never going to change, right? You know you're going to need X staff. You know you're going to have X revenue. It's never going to change. Well, the constant challenge with us is the ebb and flow up and down of insourcing, outsourcing, staffing needs. Key personnel are going to dictate what your business model is going to look like. We get into the debate of portfolio versus departmental style management structure. Mm-hmm. There's no right or wrong. It's just a matter of getting it done nicely and getting it done well. So lots to that. There's a lot of mistakes I made. And the biggest one of the biggest ones was the business development hire. I made that first hire and I completely overcompensated that person. That person was getting paid on the sign up, paid year 2, paid year 3, and then it stopped. And that staircase got really big as we started to take off. And the last year I employed that person, he made over $150,000.
Wow.
And it was just ridiculous. Right. And so in the attempts to adjust that, to rein it in, that didn't work, because you can never bring somebody back once you overpay them. It's too gone. So that was one of my big mistakes. In the end, it worked out because we had a great year last year and a pretty good year the year before. So it worked out for the best. Everything happens for a reason. But my mistake was, had I learned to potentially find a realtor like I just talked about and pay them $300, $400, $500 per sign up, and then fed them as much as I could as far as the leads, that's really where the key lies. Mm-hmm. Because that person, for some reason, they took credit for all the success. It's like mind-boggling, because we handed them lead after lead after lead. We handed them the lead, and then they took the credit for the signups.
Mm-hmm. Well, you should know that Caitlin Ashley, who's a property manager, I believe, in Rochester, New York, says she would love to be that guy. So if you are looking to hire that person for $150,000 again, I'll connect you with Caitlin.
Well, probably not.
Yeah. So Andrew, what do you got next on your list of questions here?
Brad, what would you say the most advantageous lead sources that you've worked with would be? You've mentioned All Property Management a couple of times on podcasts and things like that. But what would you say maybe your top 3 or 4 lead sources would be?
All Property Management, Facebook, and Google.
Okay.
And let's talk one each. So All Property Management, you're going to spend $75 to $100 per lead. You want to be in the top 3. Does not matter if you're overpaying. Honestly, you cannot overpay in all property management, in my opinion. My third lead that I got with them in 2012, the guy still works with us. We managed 14 of his homes here in San Antonio. That was the third lead, and I paid $70 for it.
So when you say you must be near the top, as you mean like the top of the listings on their website?
Correct. All property management will list. Now, like you'll go in there and say, I have a home to manage between 0 to 300K or 300K on up, whatever their slices are. And then you're going to put in a zip code. Whatever zip code you put in for your area, make sure you're at the top 3 in that hit. I would say go overpay and be at the top 1. Now, the downside of what all property management does is you'll pay for the lead, then they'll ask the potential client if they want that information presented to 5 other property managers. And so they're going to blast the lead out to 6 property managers. All of you are paying, a high amount for that lead, and he who hits them first often wins.
Right.
So the key there is to figure out a way to tie that into potentially like Lead Simple, for example, where an automatic text message would go out as soon as that lead comes in. So you've heard basic follow-up techniques. This is nothing new to any new show, but being the first one in line will get you the business 6 to 7 times out of 10. Okay, so drop everything, call them, drop everything, send a text message. If they're local, invite them into your office. If they're contacting you for a reason and they're at their vacant home, get in the car and go to them that day. Okay, don't dawdle around on that. You got to be really aggressive, which is why a business development person who has the time to do that, versus coming on podcast shows and asking questions, right? You don't want to be missing a lead right now when you're babbling with us.
Makes sense.
Number 2 on that is Google, and skipping past that because we talked about it. Let's talk about Facebook. Facebook is doing some interesting stuff right now. They have this they want to be a replacement model for Craigslist right now. They've got this Facebook marketplace thing going. Well, guess what? For rent by owners go on there and advertise their homes for rent. Okay, I'm letting the silence sink in. That's an easy place to go look for owners. You have that. You have militarybyowner.com. You have Craigslist.com. Those FRBOs, for rent by owners, they're essentially crying for help, right? And you have to go in there and educate them. Yes, Mr. Owner, I see you're advertising this unit for $1,000. Well, what if I could tell you I could make you $1,100, cover my own fees? Would that be something you'd like to talk about? Well, how are you going to do that? Well, through advertising, through top-notch screening, through our good systems in property management. We're going to bring in the best qualified applicant. All you're doing right now by putting it on Craigslist and Marketplace is asking for the strippers to apply. Okay. The folks with no income and want to pay you cash with a sob story. But what we do is we do it better. We fully screen. We fully have this documented. We have screening criteria, et cetera, et cetera. You go through your points of difference with them, and that could be a lead there as well. But you got to have somebody, or you got to be the person that's actually going to physically reach out to them. So
now, do you try to sign them on a management agreement, or do you try to sign them onto like just a one-off leasing agreement and then try to convert to the management agreement once you place the tenant?
It's either or. I mean, your sales techniques are going to be dependent on your market. Our leasing only program, I consider that to be the gateway drug. We want to get them into full management. We will do leasing only grudgingly, but we'd rather just do full management because we can control the process so much. And the leasing only is a scaled down version of what we do. There's no features and no benefits. There's no custom lease agreements. There's no rent collection. There's nothing. I mean, it's just like we find you a tenant and you guys, do what you want to do with each other and leave us out of it. The other thing along those same programs talking about, I really think a multiple property owner program advertised is genius. 30-some% of our signups in the last 18 months have been for multiple property owner program. So what that means is you create a program to where somebody who has 10 or more units, or you can say 4 or more units or whatever you decide. I mean, ours is 4, but they're going to come to you with 5 units and you're going to give them the farm, put it on your website. You can look at my website and see what we do. I don't want to talk fees or anything on this show, but we give away the farm in that program, and that makes the phone ring with multiple property owners. And we're on the phone now with 31. We got one has 8 coming in today. We got another one that's on the hook for 8 later on this week. I mean, they start to come to you because they don't want to shop. Owners with multiple properties, like 4, 10, 20, 30, they don't want to go to you for a specialized quote. They want to see what you're offering. Okay, I like what you're doing. I like those programs. I'm still going to call you. I'm still going to try and bargain you down, but at least you got a base to work off of. And that's where you can put your salesperson hat on and say, okay, well, I can deviate here, but I got to get this just to make a living, and you can make something work. If you had never gotten that lead, you never have that opportunity to actually make something work for that particular owner who has multiple properties. 30+% of our signups have been from that program the last 2 years. So think about that. Had we not had that, we'd have missed out on probably 150, 200 units.
Now, I know that you have a multi-tiered pricing setup. Such that how do you have that broken out? Is it like a leasing only tier followed by a single property owner followed by a multi-property owner?
Yeah, pretty good question there. So it's a leasing only, goes into the silver, gold, platinum type plans, and then caps out at the multiple property owner. And the MPO plan is what we call it, multiple property owner. The MPO plan is great to talk to somebody who has 3 units. And to get them to sign, you say, I'll tell you what, we're going to cut you a concession. We're going to put you on the MPO plan, even though you only have 3 units. And why don't we help you go buy another one? Right? Gives you a reason to reach out to somebody with 2 units or 3 units.
Right.
So, you know what? We developed this new multiple property owner program. We want to put you on it. We just need you to go buy one more unit. Do you think we can go do that? And so there's opportunities there. Now the silver, gold, platinum, the first, middle, high level, that's something you're going to have to develop on your own in your own market. Obviously you can copy my stuff. I can't, close that off to the world, but I think it works tremendous. What I will say on that is the flat fee based system works much better in my market than a flat fee percentage would work. So if you have a scale up percentage model, X% for first plan, X plus something else % for second plan, X plus something else for third plan, what happens is that reverses itself. So the low end owner landlord goes for the high end plan in a percentage based system. Because you're giving them the most goodies, right? So it flips itself. With us, it doesn't happen because that flat fee, X dollars first plan, X dollars second plan, X dollar third plan, that keeps kind of everything in check to that level of home that you're going after. And so intentionally, we've gone after the upper end market in San Antonio, and we've been able to reach that point. Everything we manage is around $1,600 to $1,700 a month in rent, which is $300 to $400 higher than any one of my competitors on average rents. So that's a great business. It eliminates all the headache of evictions. You got none of that problem. We have, in 850 some units, we file 2 to 3 evictions a month and attend court for maybe 1 a quarter. But that's for 850 some units at a high end level. Yeah. Now, on the flip side of that, sorry to keep talking, but the flip side of that is you have to provide a really kick-ass level of service because those are upper end folks, upper end tenants, upper end owners, and they're going to expect the level of service. And that's where you potentially have to staff up and make sure that, you're doing the right things as much as you can.
Brad, I got a question that came in here in our Rent Prep for Landlords Facebook group. It came from KK Wallace as her username, but she said, what are some of the things that you would suggest to have in place before you scale? So I thought this would be a good time because you're talking about making sure that you can, accommodate these higher end clients that are going to expect that level of customer service.
That's a loaded question because scaling from what point? I mean, if we're talking Andrew's scale, he's sitting at 125 units, let's say, and he wants to go to 300 in 18 months. Some of the things that I would suggest that he have in place to scale are the staffing to include business development. You're much better to have growing pains from business development than trying to do everything to be ready for growth and not have any growth. Okay, so it's the cart before the horse concept. You got to have the leads, you got to have the signups before you can even figure out what's going on with the staffing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
You'll fail. I mean, you'll okay, now we have 20 new units this month and somebody is not getting called back or somebody's not getting emailed or this home's not being marketed soon enough. You're going to fail. There's no cure for that. You just have to know that in scaling up, you may want to overstaff just a hair. Okay. Like I think we're overstaffed right now, just a little bit, but I can handle 200 homes that dump in my lap today. I mean, I can handle it, no problem. And we're incentivized to where my staff members would jump up and cheer if they got 200 units in a day. And because as the company grows, everybody's growing, their incentives growing. They see the value in that versus if you have somebody on straight salary and you give them 5 more homes, they're going to be like giving you the fake smile and say, thanks. And really hate you,
Right.
What it does create more work for them. So there really is no perfect answer in that. Just be prepared that your staffing levels are going to go up and down. Your service levels are going to go up and down. The only real way to monitor service levels is through Net Promoter Scores.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been a big fan of those, big proponent of those. We use that through SurveyMonkey, and we'll physically call people and get surveys from them for every survey you can conceive of. I mean, you got your new owner sign up survey, you got your new tenant 30-day sign up survey, you got your maintenance surveys. You could even do exit, post-mortem surveys if you really wanted. But the big three there are going to help you keep those NPS scores.
Brad, I'm sure a lot of the people that'll be listening to this are familiar with NPS scores, but maybe just don't realize that they've seen them a bunch. Can you explain what that looks like? Because it's a really simple, just one question survey, right?
Right. It's a Net Promoter Score. And so what we end up doing is our team members call. Let's do the one example, and I'll walk you through the whole thing so you really get a deep understanding of it. So the maintenance survey is we're looking for an NPS score, a Net Promoter Score from that. So as soon as a maintenance work order is completed, our team members call the tenant and said, "Hello, tenant. This is somebody from RentWerx. And on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the service that you got from RentWerx for the repair? Would you recommend, on a scale of 1 to 10, would you recommend RentWerx to a friend or family member?" I mean, a couple of questions like that. And SurveyMonkey will help you.
Sorry about that, Brad. I think you there, Andrew?
I'm here. Yep.
Okay, sorry about that. That was my fault. I was pulling your name off the screen. I actually pulled you right off. So going right back to that, as far as SurveyMonkey.
What a jerk. He just kicked you out.
Green now Andrew's in the middle. So people are going to be all confused. But
so the Net Promoter Score, what happens there is you'll start to compile that data inside of, let's say, SurveyMonkey, and you can use those analytics however you want. You can look at them by the week, by the month, by the quarter, by the year. It's really a neat way to track your service levels. And so we're sitting at about an 85, 86 on our maintenance for an NPS score. And it goes from a minus 100 to a plus 100. So it's kind of like a speedometer. And so plus 85, 86 is really good. And so I monitor those every week and look at them. And we do a weekly maintenance inventory meeting that's actually today at 11. And we go through those scores. And if we start to see drop, like what happened? Mm-hmm. Well, this vendor no-showed 3 people. Really? Okay, we got to fix that.
Right.
That's how you stay on top of the service levels through that NPS score.
And that NPS score, I believe SurveyMonkey offers like benchmarks for your industry. So it's compared to what other people in your same industry are sending out for surveys and what kind of responses they're getting, right? Yeah,
SurveyMonkey is very powerful. I really dig it. It's not that expensive, and it's a great way to record those phone conversations. Now, you're not recording them, the audio of it. What you're doing is you're logging into SurveyMonkey, and then you're calling a potential tenant in this one example, and you're recording their answers, like you're recording that for them via phone. Mm-hmm. Because here's why. We get a 65 to 75% answer rate from the phone calls we're making. And if you leave a voicemail, that's still really darn powerful. It shows them that you care. Even if you don't get a survey response, leaving a voicemail with somebody is hugely powerful for our service levels. And then, so the next time they may answer that phone call. But on the flip side, what is an email survey right now? It is white noise. Delete, 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 delete. You're looking at 10, 15% response rate. And so the white noise of emails is getting to the point now that doing an email survey is an easy button potentially, but it's not going to get you a true actionable measure of what that service level is doing for that particular survey you're trying to get.
Okay. Andrew, moving on to some of your questions that you have. What's next on your list here?
Sure. What would you say, how would you go about when you talk to a property owner who's interested in property management services? It's kind of a two-way street. They're looking to find out information about your company. You're looking to find out information about them, the property, what the circumstances are, things like that. What questions do you ask to a property owner to ensure that they fit your business model and that they're not, well, for lack of a better term, let's say a slumlord, somebody that you just don't want to work with because they're not going to maintain their property or whatever the case may be? What are the questions that you ask when you're speaking to them?
Well, here's the thing. So there's a business development strategy here. The first thing is they shouldn't be asking you a lot of questions as far as what your business is, because all of that should be on your website, all of it. Mm-hmm. And that'd be one of the first questions you ask them. Did you look at, get a chance to look at our website? Do you watch any of the videos? And if you're like trying to hide stuff to where you get in front of them, well, we're not going to tell you our fees until we meet in person.
Right.
They're really secret hush hush. Or we're not going to tell you what we do. We're not going to tell you where we advertise. That could be a mistake. I think the full disclosure, full transparency is extremely smart. The best way to get new business. And then when you go to a property, you're going to want a whole business development packet to include presentation slicks, to include marketing materials, to include the questions you want to ask in writing. Mm-hmm. Okay. And they're going to ask you, what about my marketing plan? You pull up the slick that shows your marketing plan. Okay. What about your plans for your management plans? You pull up the slick for your management plans. And it's just back and forth. And then key point here is you have a list of questions you're going to ask. Okay. And we'll go through those, just kind of spitball with you. Mm-hmm. But where I wanted to get to before we even answer that question list is then you have a piece of paper on the other side of that goes through those questions and you can write them down. If you're not taking notes, you are absolutely being insultingly rude.
Right.
Absolutely. Because if they're going to say, well, that over there is broken and that over there needs fixed and that over there is an issue and the neighbor over there, he's got this right of access. And if you're not taking notes like diligently, if you're just sitting there saying, that's just rude. Okay. So back to it. Some key questions. What's your situation? All right. How long have you owned the home? What do you owe on the property? Do you have a high mortgage? Would you allow pets? What kind of pets? Do you have any allergies? What kind of level of insurance do you carry? Will you be willing to name me as additionally insured? I mean, I can start rattling these off like top of my head and get you 30 questions here in a heartbeat. But a lot of it's going to be driven on kind of what their situation is. Mm-hmm. You'll start to feel as you're there, the answers coming out like, okay, well, I think that room needs painting. Do you think that's something that you can do before we put it on the market? And if they answer, no, I'm not doing any painting, they can suck it,
Right.
And you close up your briefcase and say, all right, I think we're not really a good fit and I'm out of here. Because they're going to give you that indication if they're going to be a difficult landlord just by asking a few questions. So I mean, I could rattle off some more, but I think you kind of get where I'm going there. Is that good enough for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, Andrew, what else you got on your list there? You got any other questions for Brad?
Let me look through here. Marketing materials.
I got that horror story I wanted to talk about.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So you think of some more questions and
absolutely. I'm just kind of looking through my paperwork here.
So yeah, to air some dirty laundry. So what happened to us? This was 2014, and we had a templated website provider who will remain nameless. We had a templated website, and we were ranking like first for months. First on the list because of all the videos we were doing, all the content we were doing, and then all of a sudden we got tanked. We got sandboxed. Google put us on like page 8, and I didn't even know about it. One of my associates called me up and said, "Hey, Brad, you're not even ranking any longer. You're like on page 8. Do you know what's going on?" And we had no idea. So we ended up getting sandboxed. So, and we started to investigate it. We got basically torpedoed. Somebody had gone in and put about 300 backlinks on there to like Britney Spears websites and Russian porn and all this weird stuff backlinked into my website that Google thought was totally black hat type stuff. I mean, completely just off the wall backlinking. And they sandboxed us and they said, we're in timeout. So we ended up having to kill that URL, kill that site, and start completely from scratch with a brand new URL and build with that brand new WordPress site I was talking about, where we have a custom built WordPress site. And, WordPress versus templated sites, my opinion is 5149. I mean, I like the WordPress site because you can manipulate it, touch it daily, manipulate it as much as you want. Lots of good things to it. But essentially what Google's looking at is who's more custom and who has more content. That's what they're looking at in a bottom line of their algorithms. That's why we rank so well, because we have a custom site, it's a WordPress site, and we manipulate it all the time, getting fresh content on it. If you have a templated site, those are fine too, but they're tougher to rank. Okay, it's 5149, and we can debate this all day long. Nobody has mastery of the Google algorithms out there, especially not me. I'm just kind of repeating what my webmasters told me, and I know it's working. Mm-hmm. So it took us about a year, 6 months to a year, to really come back from that being torpedoed. And I've had several associates say that it was intentionally done by potentially a competitor. So
that's the first thing I thought when you mentioned that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, somebody got in there and basically they just sabotaged us. So it was really unfortunate. We were ranking so well. And of course I went into freak out mode and We started doing Google pay-per-click ads like crazy just to try and make up for it, because that's an alternative. If you don't have a high-ranking site, you can do pay-per-click ads and really get that going. At least you can get some traffic through those. They're more expensive. You got to monitor the what out of them. But going back to Facebook, that is, you got to get that as far as, what really works well is taking a couple programs like a agent referral program, creating a couple good Facebook posts and just boosting the crap out of them over and over and over and over and over, boosting those to realtors. Come up with a funny video that you like, and you boost that to investors in your area. Pay Facebook whatever you can afford to boost it, because the actual cost per lead on Facebook far exceeds Google. I'm talking, it's like a couple bucks versus, Google might be $200. And that's no kidding. The ratios are that different. So if Facebook, I would put in there as much as you can stomach to do, and monitor it and get it going. There are services out there that do that for you, but you got to spend the money on the Facebook leads.
So I'm kind of thinking of like actionable advice here based on the conversation that you and Andrew are having. So before you're telling Andrew, if you want to hire a business dev, that maybe the real estate agent would be the way to go and give them a flat fee for anything they bring in. So now what you're saying is he could create a post, put it on Facebook, and maybe the post is something about how to make extra income as a real estate agent in Buffalo, New York. So for somebody who's maybe not familiar with Facebook advertising, it's not terribly complicated. You put a credit card to it, you can boost that post. So you're targeting real estate agents or people that are really specific interests to real estate, and you can put a radius on that to Andrew's office, maybe 10, 15, 25 miles out. And you've done this type of thing, Brad, in the past, and you've seen leads roll in from doing this?
Yeah, we're doing it very successfully right now. We're seeing leads like crazy. And the funny videos get the most traction. So if you can go dance naked, do it and then put it out there, I think that gains the most traction. Just because like we're going to do one this week where it's going to be bloopers, right? So how you do a video, hey, this is, us with RentWerx and blah, blah, blah. And then you stop and go bleep, 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 bleep. Those things, the bloopers, and you watch the end of a movie, like a comedy movie, and they have the bloopers. Those are the funniest things ever. Right. That's what people almost want to watch. They want to watch the bloopers because they're so funny. It's the stupid cat videos. It's the bloopers that get the most traction. And of course, you got to do the serious business videos so you can actually get your real message out there. So kind of do a healthy mix of both if you can. Okay.
I got to ask, since we are doing this as a video here, what's your dog's name?
That was Daisy.
Okay.
What breed of dog is that?
That's a German short-haired pointer, and she's the office dog. She gets to come to the office with me every day. This is the most spoiled dog ever. When we're not podcasting inside of here, we're letting her run through the office, and she greets tenants and vendors and owners. And
nice.
The staff likes her. At least as my wife says, they tell you they like her.
Yeah, that dog looks a little bit spoiled. That's where you should be getting your reviews, is from the dog.
Yeah. And we use her for marketing stuff. I mean, if you look at the website, one of the things that pops up in the bottom right-hand corner is like a chat feature, and got a picture of Daisy on there saying, "How can I help you?" Those things. I mean, we don't need to take ourselves that serious, because we are a serious business, but everything can be done with just a hint of humor, and life is better that way.
Right. Absolutely.
Very cool. I like it. Andrew, you got any other questions, or does that kind of sum everything up for you?
Yeah, this was super enlightening. I really appreciate Brad taking the time and speaking with me today. And this was great. I've got a whole couple pages of notes here that I can kind of skim through and reference over the next day or so, and kind of come up with a game plan.
Good. Been a pleasure. So yeah, if anybody wants to listen to the podcast, just go to the propertymanagementmastermind.com, propertymanagementmastermind.com. There's a way to log in there. You can do these through iTunes. You can syndicate that through there, and leave us a 5-star review inside of iTunes. That would really help us. So if you get an opportunity to listen to the show and you like an episode, one of the highest ranking episodes was Tim Melton, and he talked about growing a management company inside of multiple markets. And so that's gotten the most downloads out of all the episodes. So clearly everybody's focusing on the growth right now, just like our questions, Andrew. And so we're going to be doing a lot more episodes on that, as far as, growing, how to grow, how to handle the growth. There's so many things around that, and we're creating all kinds of episodes and products to help with that.
Nice.
Very cool. Well, thank you, Brad, for your time. And Andrew, thank you as always, as you're here every week. So, because you're old hat, just like I am. Brad's the new guy here. But yeah, we appreciate your insights, and hopefully everyone got a lot of helpful advice on this, on how to scale a property management business. So thank you.
Happy to come on anytime, guys. Have me back again.
All right.
Absolutely.
Very cool. Thank you.
All right. Thanks.